Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX World. I'm Megha Sharma. Let's take a look at the top stories of the hour. At least 22 people were killed and 100 others injured as the Nepalese police used deadly force against demonstrators who came out on the streets, triggered by a ban on social media platforms and anger over corruption. Nepal's Prime Minister has resigned from his post following the violent protests. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that a Russian airstrike has killed 23 civilians who were collecting their pensions in a village in eastern Ukraine. He called for pressure by Kyiv's allies in Russia. France is all set to get a third Prime Minister in a year as François Bayrou has handed over his formal resignation at the Elysee following a confidence vote against him in the parliament yesterday. President Macron said that he will appoint a new Prime Minister in the coming days. The French government will deploy 80,000 police personnel to contain the mass protests that are planned for 10th of September, which could number 100,000 people and target airports, train stations and highways with blockades or acts of sabotage. The Democratic Party has released a letter that was allegedly penned by Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein. Trump has denied doing so and has called the report false and defamatory. He even filed a $10 billion lawsuit against Wall Street Journal earlier. Hundreds of Palestinians are now fleeing their homes after moving towards shelters in South Gaza after the Israeli military warned all residents of Gaza City to leave immediately in anticipation of a huge ground offensive. Former Thai Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra has been ordered to serve a one-year jail term. He has accepted the court's verdict and expressed gratitude to the king for his reduced sentence. He has further vowed to continue serving the nation, the monarchy and the people with unwavering dedication. All right, let's take a look at the big story of the hour. We're getting to know that the Israeli media and officials have reported that Israel has carried out a targeted attack on senior Hamas leadership in Qatar, including Khalil, al-Hayya and Jabarin, amidst the ongoing regional tensions. Witnesses in Doha's Qatar district have reported several blasts and smoke rising from the area. Israeli military sources have confirmed that measures were taken to minimize harm to uninvolved citizens. Al Jazeera, a news organization citing Hamas sources, said that the delegation was targeted during a meeting. The exact location of the strike has not been disclosed. The Israeli authorities are awaiting results from the operation, which they describe as a precise action against top Hamas officials with global attention on potential repercussions. Matty Zweig is on the telecast with me. Matty, if you could shed more light into this latest development. Blasts have been reported in Doha in Qatar, and what the Israeli leadership is saying, authorities at this point of time saying that these attacks were targeted strikes on Hamas leadership, Hamas officials who were in Qatar for negotiations of a ceasefire.
Well, this is a new development, and this rise in the stakes here in all what is going on between the Hamas and Israel, because they have never tried to attempt against even seniors or not senior Hamas people in a place like Doha. It means that Israel, after all these almost 2 years of mediations of Qatar, is finally accepting the theory that the role of Qatar in all these last years was more negative than positive, and even their mediation is not in a good phase. It looks like this is the consequence of what has been happening now. We still don't have the details, and we don't know if exactly they tried to neutralize Khalil al-Hayya and Mohammed Jabarin, that they are in themselves, when they are not in Doha, very dangerous people. But anyway, the to try to attempt against them in the soil of a country that is so-called mediating, and it's really a game changer, because in the last years, from all kind of places, they have been accusing Doha and Qatar authorities for not being part of the solution, but being part of the problems, fueling with a lot of money all kind of extremist groups. And if this is going to really escalate to this this stage, I think it's from one side a dangerous development, from the other side is something that Israel didn't try before, and they have to explain why. And it's also maybe people in Israel are going to think that is a way for the Netanyahu's government to say, I know I have been accused of a relationship with Qatar, but I am not attacking Qatar, but I don't care about attacking in Qatar soil, which maybe is going to put him a little bit far from the accusations of the so-called Qatar gate inside Israel. Let's see what's happening in the next developments.
All right, talking about Qatar, which has also now released a formal statement. It has condemned this attack. It has said that it is a blatant flagration of the sovereign state of Qatar. How do you think things are going to move ahead, especially when it is a very sensitive time? There has been US pressure that has been mounting on Hamas to accept a ceasefire deal, a hostage exchange deal. There have been talks that have been taking place in Qatar. There have been a number of leaders that the US envoy Steve Witkoff has been meeting with regards to resolution of this conflict that has been going on for 2 years. Do you think this is going to set back the effort that has been made, the progress that has been made up until now in negotiating a ceasefire?
Well, this can be a setback if it's going to stop everything, but it's not going to be a setback if Doha is going to receive the message in another way. We are in the Middle East. People change their way of thinking and loyalties. And before that, Egypt was the ultimate mediator. And in the last 2 years, Qatar has been the mediator, because they say they have wonderful relationship with also with the Hamas side, to convince them of going to a deal, and not only Israel. So things are changing. For Israel, is also can be a setback, because there are some senior people around Trump that they have very good relations, even commercial relations with Qatar, like the same Steve Witkoff, which have a lot of things in common with Qatar. So if we get to this point, something big is going on, and all the relationships are going to be...
Do you think there could be a retaliation from Qatar at this point of time targeting Israel?
They look, if someone is going to tell you that in the last 10 years, they were fueling with billions of dollars Hamas to build their tunnels and to build all the force they built it to attack Israel on the 7th of October, this is also a way of attacking Israel. So you can talk a lot and talk about retaliation, but this is not the exact word. The exact word, if Qatar is going to...
Do you think Israel at this point of time will get unadulterated, full, strong support from the United States of America, as it had gotten from the Trump administration during its strike on Iran?
I don't think so. This is a different case. I think this is going to be very strong discussions with Trump and the people around him. From what everybody knows, there are around Trump people that think 180 degrees different from one another. So the final outcome of all this situation is what Trump is going to think about everything that's going on, and all the details that they are going to whisper in his ear, and maybe we'll see what kind of reaction he has.
All right. In fact, talking about reactions, Qatar has strongly condemned the Israeli attack targeting Hamas officials in Doha, calling it a cowardly and blatant violation of international law. The Qatar government emphasized that the strike contravenes the established global norms and call for accountability. Officials have confirmed that a high-level investigation is currently underway to assess the full impact of the attack and determine the appropriate response. Matty, what is going to be, according to you, an appropriate response from Qatar?
Well, they can strongly, of course, say that Israel is not allowed to have this kind of actions in another country. But we are in the Middle East again. A lot of things have been going on in the last 2 years since the pogrom that Hamas did on the Israeli society in the 7th of October. Since then, Israel has entered also the so-called sovereign space of Syria, or the sovereign space of Lebanon, or the soil. And the word sovereign is overrated here. Overrated because if you are using your country to make attacks on another countries, the word sovereign is not a real word that they have
All right,
to use
thank
now,
you, Matty, for
but
joining me, sharing your views. I'm also being joined by Ambassador Basuti Mukherjee. Ambassador Mukherjee, this shocking development that has taken place, the Israeli military has struck Qatar. It says it has struck Qatar. These are, you know, very precise strikes that have been executed to attack the Hamas senior officials. Qatar has called it a blatant fragilation of international rights, international laws. How do you react? Do you think the situation is going to escalate further here on and a massive step back from the progress that has been made so far when it comes to the ceasefire negotiations?
Just from an Israeli perspective, as our guest just pointed out, there were a lot of doubts about Qatar's bona fides as a neutral mediator between Israel and Hamas, because those who are well versed in politics were fully aware of the fact that the Qataris have always played a double role on this matter. That being said, Hamas had earlier accepted the offer of mediation and also of a limited ceasefire and release of hostages, but Netanyahu's government, which for domestic political reasons it appears wants to continue with the hostilities for as long as it can, Netanyahu's government has not been very receptive to this idea because they want to completely eliminate the Hamas leadership. In this particular case, they have taken the extreme step of trying to eliminate them on Qatar soil, which of course is a violation of international law. That being said, as our Israeli guest said, I presume he's from Israel, that in the Middle East, there seems to be a kind of interpretation of international law that is very fluid. We've seen a lot of killing of women and children, unfortunately, in Gaza. Now we are looking at a possible complete evacuation of Gaza as a heavy ground offensive takes place. That would in effect mean that the Gazan residents would find it very difficult to go back. So you're looking at an entirely new scenario in this part of the world. And whether that would result, as I very much fear, in the killing of the remaining Israeli hostages who are in miserable condition, being held in tunnels, being starved. I've seen emaciated images of these hostages. I very much fear that the Israeli ground offensive should not result in the killing of the remaining Israeli hostages.
Yeah.
At the same time, it would appear that the situation is worsening as we speak. These targeted strikes by Israel on Qatar soil means that not only will Qatar withdraw, but it will be difficult to find any Arab negotiator who would be willing to negotiate between Israel and Hamas. The Egyptians have already stepped back. The Qataris will certainly step back, in which case that would leave us only with Jordan. And Jordan has always been very, very hesitant to get involved in mediation of this kind.
Yeah, absolutely. Also not the most powerful nation when it comes to the Middle Eastern geopolitical scenario that plays out. Obviously, Saudi Arabia and Qatar are amongst the two big, strong nations that can even, boast of hosting these talks and acting as negotiators. And Saudi Arabia definitely doesn't seem like a country that is going to support Israel. In fact, it has condemned Israel on several occasions in the past recent months for the genocide, as it says, Israel has committed on the civilians in Gaza. There's more information coming in. Ambassador Mukherjee, please stay on. The US Embassy in Doha has now issued a shelter-in-place order following reports of missile strikes in the city. The citizens of America are advised to remain indoors and follow safety instructions. Updates and guidance will be shared on the embassy's official social media channels. It comes as local Israeli media says that Trump gave green light for attacks on Hamas leadership in Qatar. That's interesting, Ambassador Mukherjee, because the next question that I was going to ask you is that do you think the Trump administration is going to give strong support to Israel for the strike that it has conducted in Qatar? And as per Israeli leadership, they said that a go-ahead was given by the Trump administration to do exactly that.
Well, the American administration has been very supportive of Israel's efforts to eliminate Hamas completely. So it wouldn't surprise me if they'd given the green signal. On the other hand, they had tried to bring pressure on Netanyahu to accept some kind of a deal which would involve the release of the remaining hostages and a kind of a ceasefire. So this is unconfirmed news, Megha. So I'm hesitant to confirm it on national television right now.
Yeah.
I will need to check the source. But there is no doubt that the Americans, in their own way, did try to pressure the Israelis so that the hostages could be released and some kind of limited ceasefire could take place so that the daily killing of women and children, which is causing a lot of pressure on the Trump administration, even within the United States, would ease. That is not going to do so if there's going to be a full-scale genocide and complete evacuation of the population of Gaza by heavy Israeli ground attacks, as they have warned and told the Gazan residents to leave immediately because their ground offensive is imminent. So it's a very tricky situation right now as we speak.
All right, stay on with me, Ambassador Mukherjee. We'll shift our focus to the other big development that is taking place. Disturbances in Nepal. The Nepal army has now stated that it will be addressing the nation shortly. This comes after the statement was released by the army, where it has stated that it has been closely monitoring the escalating protests in the country, which began over a social media ban and the allegations of corruption, and have now intensified into widespread unrest. In a statement, the army expressed deep sorrow over the loss of lives and destruction of public and private property, extending condolences to the bereaved families and wishing a speedy recovery to the injured. The army has emphasized that its constitutional duty to safeguard Nepal's independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity and national security. The army appealed to the citizens, particularly the youth, to contribute constructively to maintaining social harmony, peace, national unity during these challenging times. All right, Ambassador Mukherjee, again, I would like to understand from you, how do you think there is going to be a peaceful resolution to this unrest that has led to the death of 22 people? In fact, we're getting to know that the wife of a former Prime Minister of Nepal was burnt alive and she is dead. She succumbed to her injuries. There has been unrest that has been growing in Nepal. In the last 48 hours, there has been a statement that has been released by the Nepalese army. The Nepal army chief has said that he is going to be addressing the nation in a short while from now. The army has appeal to the youth, to the Gen Z that has gathered forces to come on the streets and organize these protests that have very rapidly, swiftly turned violent. We are also getting reports that the President Chandra Poudel says that he has not resigned. His office has now released a statement saying that the President of the country has not resigned. This comes quickly after reports poured in that the President Poudel had resigned from his post after having accepted the resignation of PM Oli, the former Prime Minister of Nepal. The office of the President has now released a statement that President Poudel has not resigned from his post amidst reports coming in that he had put in his papers as well. The protesters, the demonstrators have targeted President Poudel's residence as well. It was gutted in fire. We had released those visuals. There's more development coming in. The protesters have set ablaze the building of Simrik Airlines. Simrik Airlines was set ablaze amidst escalating unrest in Nepal. Protesters targeted the airline over allegations that it provided helicopters to government leaders fleeing the country during anti-government demonstrations. All right, so those are the breaking developments coming in from Nepal. All right, with that, we come to the end of this telecast of the World Report. We'll take a short break, come right back. Thanks for watching.